All right, good morning. I've got a little reading laid out here for us. So I'm on really day one of the next phase, if you will. I've completed my first 30 days. I think I've gotten traction in setting up a new way of being. I've gotten answers to so many questions I've had about the importance of this journey, of why being happy matters, and what we're up to. And the material that came to me today is fascinating. So I'm going to combine a few different things here. Okay. One thing that I just want to say, maybe you'll get how cool it is, maybe you won't, but this is a flip book I bought from Abraham and Esther Hicks. I went to one of my first of I've listened to her material for many years. It's free on YouTube, and I feel like it always puts me in a better mood when I listen to it. That was the main reason I listened to it. And I never liked listening to things on YouTube before that, but they were like, all right, I can give 10 minutes to this. And I was doing a lot of driving, and it started to take, if you will. I just started to really enjoy listening to it, even if I wasn't listening to it. And now I understand what that was about. But I went to one of their seminars here, my first one last year, and bought this flip book. Okay, so I've had this for over a year. But it sat there. I did a few of the lessons, but really I've not done it consistently until this last 30 days. Okay. And it was so funny because I literally just got to the page that said, you're starting your second month in this flip book. And I was like, oh, wow, I've had this for like a year and a half, but getting to month 2. And it mattered to me, but that's how little prioritization I gave for really my spiritual well-being or my emotional well-being. I never used to know those things were the same thing. I didn't know my emotions mattered. I was so good at pushing through. I thought that's how you get successful. I thought I was so motivated, and that made me strong and tough. And I didn't realize that I was really swimming upstream. I was doing things the real hard way by not caring about how I felt, because I was making myself do a lot of things I didn't want to do. And so my energy was all off. But that's what this process is about. You do that and then you come to something new. Anyway, so I got to that. I'm also doing the Course in Miracles. So this is a book that I used to study quite a bit. And then I stopped because, it's been around for like 50 years. And it has this whole idea about being able to the Course in Miracles is do miracles. It's about how to do miracles. People think it's written by Jesus. It came through a psychiatrist who was involved in the University of Columbia. They were actually the heads of the department in psychiatry, I believe. And if you read it, it sounds like Jesus probably wrote it. And it explains that miracles aren't that miraculous and what was really going on. He wasn't God healing people. It's very much about mind and about being in a dream. And so, but if it's been around for 50 years and if it's true, I felt, well, so many people study it. Where's all the healing? Where's all the divine healing that should happen from the book? And I didn't feel it was happening for me at that level. And so I really got away from it for about a year now, 2 years maybe. And did a lot of other stuff. And I literally just came back to it during those 30 days. I actually had started another YouTube. I'd let it go. And I was like, I'll start doing that at the same time and see if the book makes any different sense to me. And it does. I hear it in a whole different way. The language of the book, the course, is unfortunately very heavy. And I think that's because of who it came through. We don't realize that, when you get a download of information from non-physical to physical, whoever's brain it's coming through affects the message. And Abraham will say again and again, Esther was one of the purest channels we've ever found as far as just being free-flowing, not really attached to ideas. And so she's very positive to listen to. And I loved that. So I love that positivity. If you take the course, I think you can definitely tell it came through a psychiatrist who in the 70s would have been obviously very educated, probably had a lot, I would say, of religious background from the verbiage. And so it sounds a lot heavier. It's got words like salvation and temptation and idols, and it kind of gets, a little heavy. Well, now I realize we can replace some of these words, and I think we can lighten the message a bit and get the message at a different level. It's not as dramatic as it sounds. And that's kind of my goal with that, is to lighten that up and help unlock it a bit for us. But with that long rambling intro, what I want to say is, so I had set this down for a couple of years and I didn't pick it up. So there's 365 lessons in here. So it's a whole year course, essentially, part of it that you're supposed to do. And I had started another YouTube channel. I had left it a year or two ago without touching it. And I picked up at the lesson that was on that channel. I didn't start on lesson 1. I started wherever that channel was, which was lesson 50 something or 60 something. I think it was 50 something. It was 50 something. And I didn't do it for the first part of my 30 days. So I just started it randomly one day and started doing it. That's the thing. And then yesterday, the last few lessons, my meditations have been extremely powerful in a way that I've never experienced. And then I looked down. I don't know how I didn't notice this before either. And this is our lesson for the day. And I want to show you, this is page 71. Can you see it? Okay, so this is page 71. It says the time of awakening. And I'm getting this on the day 1 of my phase 2. Mind you, completing my 30 days. And look at the lesson for today. It's lesson 71, if you can't see. Lesson 71. I did not plan that. I did not notice that those page numbers were syncing up. I could not have planned that in a million years. I've picked this up and set it down. I've picked this up and randomly set it down, picked it back up. How in the world I ended up on 71 for both of those? Oh, and by the way, 8 is one of my numbers if you're into numerology. And when I read these this morning, it just blew my mind. It blew my mind. And what it's talking about and with where I'm at. So with that kind of synchronicity, again, there's no way in the world I could have planned that. I could not have made that. And how come I didn't even notice the page numbers or the lessons if they were syncing up? And by the way, these pages have a page number on the back of each one. So each flip is 2 pages. So it's not like I'm going to be going along perfectly with this book. This book's going to progress faster because it's 2 page numbers on each side. So for me to notice that today and have it be what it is, it might sound hokey, but it's huge to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, something is syncing here. And how these 2 programs aren't even related, by the way. Course in Miracles and Abraham aren't even related. But I'm going to read them both today because they are. Today, at least. I'm sure they always won't be, but I just popped my brain. To me, when different material comes to me and I'm randomly opening things and I'm reading things and they sync up, I go, something else is happening, right? I'm in sync with spirit, I believe, with God, soul, universe, whatever you want to call it. I don't have a specific identity of it. The Tao, I think, is the best definition of it. It's like a force that's working with us and flowing with us. So it's a long intro, forgive me, but I'm gonna jump into the reading now. Okay, this says the time of awakening. This is one of the most remarkable times of physical man being physically focused and non-physically intertwined. So per the Abraham Esther methodology, if you're not aware, you have 2 parts. You have a non-physical part, it says, and a physical component. I'm the physical component of me, and then I have a non-physical component that helps to guide me, can kind of see everything, helps me. In the Course of Miracles, you also have 2 parts, but it's called the ego self, which is the human self, and then you have the Holy Spirit, which is, again, the spiritual self that's trying to guide you and help you. But it's really the same concepts when you unpack it. So, all right, the time of awakening. This is one of the most remarkable times of physical man being physically focused and non-physically intertwined. So between spirit and matter, if you want to say. It's the reason we call it the time of awakening. So let's begin by saying you wouldn't have missed it for anything. Every non-physical energy of good report, praiseworthy and eager to be of value to the universe and to the all that is present in some form or other on this planet at this time. And when I read this, I went ahead and looked up good report, and it means honorable, of good standing. So basically all of the positive good spirits are focused on us or living here at this time. This is saying, like, how cool is that? So it says they're focused in some form or other on this planet at this time. So I think of Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay who've passed. I think all of those forces are very focused on us, but it also tells us that not everybody has to be, which has been a question that I've had, but everyone who's really all about this game is focused on it right now. And let's say focused on making it a happy dream, focused on making it a beautiful place. We've had a lot of nightmares that have gone on, a lot of fear, a lot of guilt, a lot of punishment, a lot of suffering. And I truly believe that the good report spirits understand that there's another way to be, and we're all here to take it up to another level, I think. We don't know of any intense energy that is not represented by one of you. We're all real intense, but you know that, don't you? In other words, we're here in all of our fanfare and all of our glory to experience the remarkable planet Earth experience. Has 3 quotes on this one. Next quote. The only way for you or any to reach this place of understanding of this life experience in the context in which it was intended is to reconnect with who you are, to gain that sense of the overall picture, sense of the I am and why I am here. This is fantastic because the I am, right? That's in the Bible. Neville Goddard talks about it. Wayne Dyer's talked about this power of I am, which is really a definition of consciousness, that we're being, that no matter what, everything that's being has a sense of I am. That's really defines consciousness. Untethered Soul digs into it. I mean, you've got Alan Watts is talking about it. So it's really I am and why I am here. Like, we want to know why, and thinking that we're just an accident is not satisfying and requires just as much faith. And I'm not dogging atheists. I was an atheist for a while, but there was a point with atheism where I realized that it took just as much faith to believe that this was all an accident than something else was going on. And it took all the magic out of it. And I that's when I really started to shift my studies and faith. I realized I've got to have faith. I'm going to have faith no matter what I believe. So I might as well have my faith in something that gives me a little bit more of a return and a sense of purpose. And that's what started this journey. So, all right, the next quote: the disconnected beings are living their disconnected experience. They are not having a good time of it, while those of you who are connected are having a glorious life of experience. Join me. The very small percentage of you, I will repeat, who remain connected are the ones that are responsible for the evolution, the beneficial evolution of your planet. All who came forth intended to be connected. They just caught up in the habit of the thought of lack. So this says that, there's a ton of us here that are all excited to be of value to the universe and all that is. But in order to really enjoy it, I have to connect to my sense of I am and why I'm here. And those of us that are getting connected, staying connected, we are the ones who are really enjoying life. The ones who got lost in the lack, which I spent a lot of years there too, right? They're just in the habit of the thought of lack, and they're not having as much fun. So we're going to have fun now, aren't we? Now I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Course in Miracles lesson 71. I'm not going to read the whole lesson here. You could go to the other channel there. I read the whole lesson and you get into actually the meditative practice that it asks. But I want to make the point that it's got here. So the lesson says only God's plan for salvation will work. Again, that sounds very heavy. So bear with me as I translate this. I'm going to read a little bit of it and then translate it, okay? So it says, you may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. So that's your physical self. It is this plan which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. So in other words, we've got it backwards. And if the word God is sticky for you, I totally understand that. I hated the word God for many years. So you can just, I think I'll switch it to source. And ego, I think most people are in terms, like, work well with the term ego, but why don't we just say like physical self? I think that is more basic, less charged. So of course it says, so you also believe that to accept source plan, and for salvation, I'm going to replace that with mental freedom. So let me reread what I said with those switches, okay? Because salvation, really what it's talking about is mental freedom in this book. Mental freedom from resentment, fear, guilt, those types of things. So you may not realize that your physical self has set up a plan for mental freedom in opposition to sources. It is this plan which you believe. Since it is the opposite of sources, you also believe that to accept source's plan in place of the physical self is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet after we've considered just what your physical self's plan is, perhaps you will realize it, however preposterous it may be, you do believe it. So let's get into that. It says, so your physical self's plan for salvation centers around holding resentment. It says grievances here, but really it's about resentment. And I also want to define it as, let me read another line. It says, it maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved, or you would feel better, you would be happy. And we know we have this. I was talking about it in my video for the day, right? So much of my life was spent thinking, well, those people, and everybody does it at this point. If the government was different, if Democrats were different or Republicans were different, or this group was different, or my boss was different, or my family was different, or my finances were different, I would feel better. That's what this is saying. That's where we think feeling better is, something outside of ourselves. That's what the physical self thinks. And we do all believe that. Even Christianity, you could say, is something outside of me saving me, right? I have sin, I have guilt, and I need something outside of me to save me. So, and we also think grievances in this is also a form of protection. So if someone wronged me, then I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to learn from that. And I'm going to make sure I hold on to not trusting because I learned that that was unsafe. And in that, we hold a resentment and we teach our kids this and we pass it on that, no, you can't do that. Don't do that because that's not safe. And that is about grievances too. We block ourselves. We think we're learning to do life better. We don't realize that we're cataloging resentments and it's actually blocking light from us. So it says, thus the source of mental freedom is constantly perceived as outside of yourself, or the source of your happiness. Each grievance or resentment you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would feel better. The change of mind necessary for mental freedom or happiness is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to feel better. And that's where the fallacy is. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of feeling better is accepted, provided that it will not work. So, you can't control anything outside of you. That's not going to work. And this is what creates disconnection, because we're disconnected from ourselves because we think that the solution is outside of ourselves. Which goes back to the original reading. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that although this hope has always failed, there's grounds for hope in other places and other things. So I thought that relationship would save me. It turned out to be bad. Now it's going to be this one. I thought that job would be my answer. I was going to be totally happy if I got that job. Suddenly it's not. Everything about it's right, but this coworker or that boss, that coworker leaves or that boss leaves. Now I've got a different problem, right? So every time we think, if I make that money, I'll feel better. You get that money and you're like, I don't really feel better. That car, it goes on and on and on. And we have to get present to, I have chased this thinking everything was going to make me feel better, but it was fleeting. And I ended up with the same feeling and just blamed something new for it. That's what this is saying. Okay, another person will serve yet better. Another situation will yet offer success, such as your physical self's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the physical self's basic doctrine, seek but do not find. And of course, we know in spirituality, it's always seek and you will find, ask and it will be given. But you have to seek in the right place. And that's where we've got this misalignment. That's where all the confusion is coming from. It's from within the self. Okay, and so then it says, source's plan for salvation works simply because by following its directions, you seek for happiness where it is. And it's a few previous lessons I haven't read that point to where it is, which is that it's in my own mind, that it is my grievances or resentments that are blocking me and not allowing me to see right. And the only way out of that is to forgive. So it's in my mind. It's about taking it all in. God's plan for salvation or source's plans for salvation is in my mind because that's where all the problems are emanating from. And my function, it says, that will bring me happiness is to forgive. Because when I forgive, I get rid of resentment. I get rid of resentments against myself and others. And in that, I clear the way for light. And that's how I get happy. That's really what this course is talking about. And I was blown away that this actually was talking about something I woke up and was thinking about how I put happiness outside myself, right? Abraham talks about it a lot. If this person would just be different, if that person would be different. And so then I'm just going to add a little tiny piece of reading here. And it says, are there ascended masters? It says, are there ascended masters out there? I mean, and this is actually from Wayne Dyer and Esther Hicks having a little conversation. So, and this was something I was curious about. It says, are there ascended masters out there? I mean, we hear so much about people like Saint Germain and Jesus, and here Wayne Dyer is asking Abraham about this, who many believe is directly speaking from source. I think Abraham is directly speaking from source. And so Abraham responds, well, this alignment is not like a college degree where once you achieve it, it is yours forevermore. It either is or it isn't in the moment. But there certainly are those who catch the spirit of that alignment and work to maintain it. And that is what you're talking about. So it says even Jesus or Saint Germain, they still have to work to maintain their alignment too. So Wayne asks, can we access these people? Abraham responds, they're available to you at all times. Just get focused on what they're interested in and see how readily available they are to you. I'm assuming that's why my access to answers and material is changing. And what are they interested in? Wayne asks. Abraham says, everything that you're interested in. They're eager. You see, this physical time-space reality is the leading edge of thought. Humans often think that this is just a trial ground and that heaven is where it's at. But this is the leading edge of thought. This is where thought manifests. This is where it's at. Earth is crammed with heaven, Wayne says. And Abraham says, earth is heaven or hell. Your choice. And that really brings home that, as long as we're looking for heaven, but for something outside of ourselves and someone to give it to us, we can't access it. It's only when and that's why Jesus said in the Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's when we turn it in and go, I'm the one that has access to being connected or disconnected by what I think, by my mood, my vibrational level. And when I take back the power for my salvation or my happiness or freedom as being something that is inside of me, inside of my own mind, the importance of this journey to get happy, to get focused on ourselves, how we feel, and what's happening up here becomes so much more important, to the point where you can actually say something like, your salvation is dependent on it, is pretty fascinating. It's the most important thing that there is. And when I studied the Course in Miracles before, I didn't realize it was talking about happiness. Like, it's trying to get you happy. I think it's because of the heavy language, and that's one reason it's important to filter and sort of bring it down a few levels, or bring it into a more positive, not such charged language. So often when there's a key given to us in this world, I feel like it comes through a filter that makes it difficult to access. And that's one reason I've always loved listening to Abraham, because I feel like Abraham's directly from source and flows through Esther and continues a constant message of positivity, of focused on love, and keeps it high vibration at all times. So that's going to conclude my reading for the first day of phase 2, that if it's going to be, it's up to me. And that all of this comes from me. I've officially gotten my footing in realizing that I'm generating everything, that I am responsible for everything. And as I continue to shift my mind, my mood will shift, and then everything in my life will shift. And that is the example I hope to set for you. So join me. I'm sure you already are if you're watching this, but hopefully I can continue to bring us material that clarifies our purpose, the importance of this, and the possibility of how achievable it is for us, as long as we're willing to focus and take the time to care enough to care about how we feel. It really is all about just being happy and leading the way to our own mental freedom.